Welcome to Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters, where we guide the next generation to Christ through the outdoors. In this special two-part series, we head to Wisconsin to meet Nathan and Nikki Clark. Nathan serves as our Wisconsin outfitter, and together the Clarks are making a powerful impact through their leadership and ministry. Join us around the campfire as we share their story of faith, courage, and adventure. Okay, welcome everybody. I've got a treat for you today. I am in Boysville, Wisconsin. Did I say that right?
No, you butchered it.
Okay, of course. I always want to say Boiseville, and I think every time I'm out of state, I never can pronounce the chapter or the town that we're in. Josh in North Carolina was giving me a hard time when I couldn't say some of the North Carolinian words. Plus, they all think I talk funny. So, but we got a special treat for you guys today here with Wild Pursuits. We've got Nathan and Nikki Clark. They are our Dunn County outfitters. They have been with us for 6 years with Cross Trail Outfitters, and you're going to hear another powerful story of how Cross Trail Outfitters has changed your all's life, but also, more importantly, how God has changed your life listening to a calling on your life by God Himself. And they've got a fascinating story of how they come to find out about Cross Trail Outfitters. And Jennifer and I have been working with them now for 6 years, and we're actually in a building right now that was just donated a few months ago to their chapter here, and I can't tell you how we're excited. We just kicked it off and did our first ever after school sportsman's night, and we did not our first outing because you guys have been doing things for a while here, but they are full-time outfitters here with Cross Trail Outfitters, and we're thrilled to have you guys with us, and we're thrilled for you all to have an opportunity to hear their story. But more importantly, I hope that anybody listening here, guys, that when they're listening to what they're about to hear, that they're encouraged by your story. Because I think a lot of people, when they hear about Cross Trail Outfitters and you hear about somebody doing this full time like you guys are now, just recently, everybody, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. You know, that'd be awesome. That'd be exciting. And yeah, I'd do that in a heartbeat if I could do that. And they don't really understand, I don't think I really understood until many years ago, that just truly not just that it's a calling, but honestly the struggle. But through that struggle, Scripture is clear about how our struggle builds character and perseverance, and it helps us understand our calling better and grows us and helps us understanding exactly God's equipping us for what's coming down the road. And it's been a blessing to watch you guys grow, but you guys have also grown me too and challenged me as a leader. So we're going to start out today. We're going to start out with Nathan telling you guys how God brought CTO, because it's kind of not unusual, but interesting because it took a lot of intentionality on your part to find us and to locate us. Because when you got involved, we were doing well. God was doing a lot of cool things, but our systems still weren't quite there. And you had to do some research and had to look us up and get on phone calls and talk to different people. And it wasn't me at that time. And but praise God, Chip did a great job in trying to get everybody connected and getting us to the point of where we are today. So through our conversation today, I would like for you guys to tell you from the beginning, and I almost take us all the way to now. And I know that could be like a 6-day podcast, right? I understand that, but I know God will do good with that. So Nathan, get us started where God kind of got you going with Cross Trail Outfitters.
Sure. Like you said, it's a long story, and Cross Trail Outfitters came in part of our life probably 15 years into our marriage, I guess, and we've been into ministry basically our full marriage from the beginning. And it started with, well, to be honest with you, learning to hear God's voice and that relationship you have with Him and that calling that He puts on your life. I try not to say too much because it'd take us forever, but you need to know the whole story. And shortly after Nikki and I were first married, we had 2 little girls, and we got married at 19, very young. I had everything figured out. You know, I grew up as a Wisconsin farm boy, and I was made a man, you know, early in life in a great family. Like I said, I grew up in a great family and grew up in church and everything like that. But early in our marriage, Nikki was, I don't want to tell her story, but she was gifted with a singing voice. And
Still is.
Yeah. And early in our marriage, God called us into music ministry. And I was working as a farmer at that time. And I remember that, I'll never forget that, you know, that feeling of when God calls you, you know, it's out of the blue. It's not like you're looking for it, you know, it just happens. And it's like, you're given a choice. Are you going to obey or are you not? Are you going to walk away because you're scared because it doesn't make sense? I remember Nikki coming home actually we were on a date night that we haven't had in a long time. And it might have purposely been because she had something to tell me. And it was that God's called her into not full-time music ministry. And we didn't even know what that looked like at the time, but she broke the news to me that night, and it changed our lives forever. At first, we were super excited about it. You know, like music ministry, like, is she going to be famous? Are we going to be like traveling all over? You know, and you know, your mind can wander on that. But then a day or so after that of being up here, we were way down here at the bottom. Like, I don't want to do this. No, like, no way. And anyway, what we felt God was calling us to was record a CD. And after we started doing some research, like, where do you do that? And how much does that cost? You know, we didn't have a producer or anything. And or money. We're farmers with 2 little girls and just barely making it. And anyway, we went a whole week fighting it, you know. And finally, a week later, we finally surrendered to God and said, okay, God, we'll do this. And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, how he provided for us to record, the songs that he provided for us to write, to record, the places that he sent us. Even in all that, I'm shortening this up a lot, but I was the background guy in this. I was kind of her manager, her roadie. I was the one to set up the sound equipment and to run the sound, and we even grew up into a big ministry team, and we traveled, and we had a stage that we pulled behind our motorhome and a trailer behind our Envoy with all our sound equipment. We had it going. And anyway, in all that, I was the background guy, and that's what fits me in my personality. Like, I like to be in the background. I like to work hard, but I like to serve, but I don't like to be seen in a way. And anyway, through all that, I mean, it's a long story. And do you want to say anything about that right now?
I don't need to.
Okay.
You're doing good.
So anyway, we got crazy busy with that. You know how you can get so busy in ministry that you almost neglect your own family and everything else, even though it's good. Yeah. And we were almost to that point, you know, doing 70 plus bookings, Nikki says, in a year, working full-time as a farmer. You know, a farmer that's like 80 to 100 hours a week. Honestly, you know, I had every dairy farm. Yes.
Yeah, that's the hard one.
Yeah,
that expect anybody else. It's all hard, but that.
Yeah, not to say anything negative towards my family or anything of the way we ran it, but it was every other Sunday night I had off. Otherwise, it's basically like sun up before sun up to after sundown. And anyway, it's hard to do that and to raise a family and to be a dad and to do ministry and be gone almost every weekend. I mean, I remember getting up at 3:30 in the morning to mix feed so we could leave home at 6 o'clock, you know, to get to a booking that's 2 hours away, and then do that all day and pack up and then leave, get home at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we did that a lot. And anyway, God said that was too much, and he basically took it away from us. And it was almost a relief, in that time. And in this time of like trying to reprogram, like, what's your purpose now? Your ministry, God took it away, which we didn't view it as negative or anything. It's just time to be mom, time to be dad, and we had another kid in that too. And he's here today.
He's sitting there listening behind over here. I'm going to bring you on here in just a little bit.
Yeah. So this is where it kind of starts with me. Like I said, I was in the background of Nikki's music ministry. And in this time of trying to find our place again, God started speaking to me. And it's kind of funny how that still small voice that they talk about, like, it's almost a nagging feeling that I knew I was supposed to do something with youth. And yet, to be honest with you, I didn't have a very positive outlook on the youth at the time. I thought it was somebody else's problem. Mm-hmm. And yet...
And you're a background guy. You kept saying you're a background guy. So, God, you're calling me this, but you're going to... I would just imagine... I don't think this is just you. I think it's many people out there that might be listening right now saying, well, I'm the background guy. I'm not the one that's going to lead somebody to Christ, or I'm not the one that's going to do it. That's somebody else's job. And I think that's part of your story of how God was using you to grow you to become the non-background guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what happened. And like I tease Kirk, like, I didn't choose CTO. God chose it for me.
Amen.
And anyway, in that process of him speaking to me, he just started putting me in places to put this thing in motion, I guess, is what it was. And how it started out was center shot archery. I don't know if you guys heard of that. It's in a lot of churches.
Yeah, CTO.
Yeah.
Partnered with center shot. We love center shot. What they do.
Yeah. So he was nagging on me. We had somebody donated that center shot program to us in our music ministry, that when we go into a community, basically we're trying to do revivals in communities, and we had speakers and we had music and everything to go along with it. And somebody gave us the center shot stuff, so we could minister to the kids while we're in a town or doing something. Yeah. So I already had that in my background. And so God started speaking to me like, I need to bring that into this church, this new church that we just moved to. And
for those who don't know, Center Shot's an archery ministry, evangelistic archery ministry for kids. We're shooting Genesis bows, and it's phenomenal for what it does. So just in case anybody was listening, what's Center Shot? That's what that is. So.
Yeah. And anyway, God put me in the leadership position in that church where I brought that ministry to that church. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking around to the guys in the church, if they would want to help out with it. Mm-hmm. And I started asking just regular guys in church that don't normally serve. Their wives might teach Sunday school, but the guys seem to have a hard time finding a place in church of where to serve, And I started talking to them about archery, and like, well, man, that sounds cool. I'll help you with that. Yeah. And through that process of just finding guys, it just started snowballing, where I had 14 guys that wanted to help. We ended up developing a whole men's ministry out of this that met every other Thursday night for supper and devotions that never existed before. So that was one thing that God opened my eyes to, and I knew was part of what he's calling me to. I knew that center shot really wasn't what he was calling me to. And as I got more into it, I knew it was a step, I guess.
Okay, so that was just part of your development to get to where God was getting you, to get you to CTO.
Yeah.
So you start center shot. You got these men's ministries forming from all of that.
Yep.
You're getting out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
You're not the behind the scenes guy now. In your mind, possibly a small, at that time probably a big way in how it felt, but and not realizing God's growing you, and then that's kind of, I'll fast forward it for you to you. There I was.
Yeah.
Blind, and what God started just prompting you.
Yeah, and then through that, I'm not knocking Center Shot at all, but it's a program, that an 8-week program. And at the end of the 8 weeks, you tell the kids goodbye. I'll see you next year when we'll do it again. And year after year, I only did it 2 years because by that time I was in CTO. But the second year, I didn't have the same kids as the first year. So it's like another thing that I knew that what God's calling me to is something more long term where you can stay in contact with these kids.
Discipleship.
Yeah, discipleship. That's what it was. Yeah. And men's ministry and discipleship and youth. That's what he was really calling me to. And anyway, what got the ball rolling for CTO was my dad called me this one day and said, "You're doing a terrible job at deer hunting."
Really?
I
hadn't heard that part.
It's a long story, and I'm not trying to take a lot of time, but the truth of the matter is I grew up on a dairy farm, and that's what we did. We dairy farmed. We didn't hunt. We didn't fish. We didn't do anything. But yet we had thousands of acres of like prime hunting land.
And I've been on that hunting land. We used to do a bunch of kids turkey hunting, and I've been here lots of deer hunts, and it's prime. I promise you.
Yeah, and we never utilized it personally. Our neighbors and whatever, just anybody would just show up and use it as like it's public land. Mm-hmm. But when I got married to Nikki here, she grew up with that in her background with her dad. And, she's a big hunter herself, being the only child. She was her dad's son, and all of his hunting stuff, got transferred to her. And anyway, when we got married, we asked my dad if we could have a certain piece of property that we could hunt just ourselves, that they wouldn't let anybody else hunt, Anyway, so my dad called me this day. I mean, this is like 10 years later. Yeah. And it's all like right in this Center Shot stuff. And he says, "You're doing a terrible job hunting. You're not killing the deer." And she's not. She's a trophy hunter. She wants to shoot the big bucks, not the does.
I'm patient.
Yeah. So
I found that out about Nikki too. I know.
Anyway, he says, "Well, I'm calling the neighbors and I'm calling Pastor Steve, and we're going to have to get these deer, taken care of." And I said, Dad, don't call anybody yet. I got an idea. Just give me a couple days here and I'll get something figured out. Well, my whole idea in that was, let's take these kids from Center Shot, these boys that we've been mentoring in the Center Shot, and let's take these guys that have been helping me with it, and let's bring them over to the farm. Let's let them do it. Make a big difference in their life. That's where this all started. And I took that idea to my guys, and they just, they got super excited about it. Yeah. And like, man, I wish we could have done this sooner. I had the idea, but it's like they couldn't put it together. And so everything just kind of fell apart. And then they pointed to me and said, "We want you to run it, like a new ministry." And to tell you the truth, Nikki's ministry that we had, her music ministry, was a nonprofit, a 501c3, that I went through that process myself personally, all the paperwork and stuff to do that. And I'm thinking, there's no way I want to do that again. I don't have the time. And I just saw this huge mountain in front of me. And to tell you the truth, that was the night before our deer hunting opener, which is a big deal in Wisconsin. Oh, yeah. And
remember, I think a key word for everybody to remember what's happening here. If you can put in the timelines together, because we haven't even gotten to the CTO part, obviously, with the word equipping just keeps coming to mind. And sometimes people think, well, if we're doing this, or we feel this calling, but then a year later we're not doing it, did I miss my calling? Or if it didn't go the way you thought it did, did I miss something, God? And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. I believe in your all's world, God was just equipping you, like you used a term, the next step. And all along, God was doing this amazing work in your life, in kids' lives, in men's life. God's changing all these lives in the process to get to you where you are. So now it's opening weekend or whatever it is in Wisconsin, deer season, and you're in your blind.
Yeah, I'm in my blind. And I'm taking Jonathan, my son. He was he 6 or 7 at the time? He was really young. Mm-hmm. And anyway, after the morning rush, we have tons of deer out in front of us, of course, but nothing like monstrous rack that I have to
I like how you say that. Tons of deer, of course. Like it's just an everyday occurrence in Wisconsin. That actually is true because I've been there and I've seen that.
But you have to shoot a buck bigger than my wife is going to shoot, so you have to hold out.
Otherwise, you're gonna
it's like
live with that.
Right. So I didn't see anything big enough, and so after the morning rush,
well, he didn't either. Jonathan didn't see anything big enough for him either.
Yeah. I don't even know if we saw any bugs.
7.
It doesn't.
Right. Exactly. That's kind of my point.
Anyway, that heaviness of starting this ministry was just like upon me, and I was just like, I wonder if anybody ever tried doing anything like this before. And so I Googled youth hunting ministry, and Cross Trail Outfitters popped up. And then I go to that website and I look it over and like, man, this is like everything that I felt God was calling me to, and it's all already put together. And we went onto YouTube and saw tons of videos that you guys did. And well, I think I started by sending Nikki. She's in her deer stand with our 2 daughters, another deer stand, and I send the website link to her, and then she's looking it over, and then she sends me a video, and then like
then he sends me a video.
Well, then I there's videos, and so anyway,
video exchanging in the blog.
Well, yeah. And the one that really hit me was Baptism in the Cave out of Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Videos hit me hard, and it's just like everything that God was calling me to all put together, and I wanted to learn more. And so I got a hold of Chip Camp. He was part of the chapter development then.
He was then, yeah.
And I remember, like, what do I have to do, And he sent me an application. I remember I filled it out like that night. I got guys that I hand applications to, and they get weeks and months to fill that out. But I did it that night.
I got to start tomorrow.
Anyway, it was just a process from there, and then the way it worked out for us to come to Missouri and find out if CTO was real. That's what we wanted to know. Mm-hmm. I wasn't looking for I wasn't looking to go hunting and fishing necessarily. Just to go hunting and fishing, and then put a little God stamp on the side. Yeah, we're a Christian ministry. I was more focused on God and discipleship making than I was the hunting and fishing, and I just wanted to see if you guys were real. And when we went to Missouri, and we attended 4 events, I believe, in that 1 week.
We did a lot. Just Sportsman's Night.
Started with a banquet.
That's right. Beach Feast, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was Mike Harris's Beach Feast there at the Finley River chapter.
Yeah.
I remember that. And that's where we met for the first time, really.
Yeah.
We had talked previously, but that's where we actually laid eyes on each other and met and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, and you did that. We did a Sportsman's Night. Yeah, there were several things that you were part of.
And that's why we picked that time frame. We could hit so many different things.
Hit a lot of things while you're here, while you're staying with your friends' house there in Stockton that happened to be minutes from my house and minutes from good friends of ours property where they do all their deer hunting in, and then we get to know Carol and Larry Hayes and how amazing they were to us and CTO and still are.
And amazing to me in my life is Carol. Yeah. Larry was my Sunday school teacher, and Carol was like my youth leader growing up. So
just the connections of everything, getting there. And so I even go out to Carol and Larry's place there in Stockton to meet you guys, to spend some time with you, and spent pretty much the day, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And just talking and visiting, and I knew then. Felt like then that God was doing something special in your guys' life, and at that time I was just running the state of Missouri and didn't know exactly how we were going to be connected, but Chip called me and said, here, I've got this guy has called me, and there's connections with all this stuff in Missouri, and one thing to the next, here we are. So you go to all these things that week Where what did you feel like from there? Like after coming out, were you jazzed up, or were you coming home saying this is awesome, or were you going that's crazy, or that Kirk guy's a nut, or what? I mean,
We were pretty jazzed,
yeah,
but to tell you the truth, I didn't do anything for a couple weeks after that. And just one particular day, for whatever reason, I said, God, if you want me to do CTO, have Chip call me that day. That's kind of weird.
you've got an ultimatum.
Yeah, I did.
Done that before. I don't recommend it, but I've done it before.
And so I did that early in the morning. And anyway, I remember like I'd get a phone call and I'd like look, see if it was Chip, you know. Oh, it's just my wife's dad, you know, whatever. He was my boss at the time. So anyway, but then like shortly after that, I think it was the second phone call, it was Chip. He called me and I was like, oh shoot. And like as soon as I saw the number, it was like North Carolina, oh shoot. Like, and then Chip's on the phone, he's like, hey Nathan, how's it going? I haven't heard from you for a while. What's going on in Wisconsin? Are we going to start this chapter or what? Do I have to get a plane ticket to Minneapolis and come over? Like, what's going on, man? I was like, oh man.
He has no idea.
He had no idea.
Gave God the ultimatum.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's kind of history from there. And then it was just basically go through the process, you know, of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. So we obviously kicked off a chapter, the Dunn County, Wisconsin chapter, and that would have been 6 years ago.
2019 was, I mean, we did a lot of stuff in 2018 of like coming to your summer camps.
Yeah.
That was 2018 basically was our training year.
Yeah.
So we're really busy with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then we really kicked it off in 2019. I even think I started off with a ice fishing outing in January.
Yeah.
So it was a full year.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah. Well, Nikki, I know, because we got a lot between the last 6 years and try to unpack in a short period of time. But I know from a wife's perspective, when you're watching your man go through all of these emotions and things and walking away from businesses, and that's part of your journey even now, accepting this full time, and in your all's case, it's a little bit unusual because it's family. I mean, family businesses, family farm. I mean, it's deep. It runs deep. It's been around for generations and generations. And then I don't want to steal the thunder, but even just now, I'm walking away from another family business later, after 6 years later, because you get out of the farming business, get into that. You're doing CTO part time, and then getting us to the point of where you're now doing this full time. So what were you thinking during that time frame? Were you excited, scared, he's crazy, or just stick to what it's what your family does? What was going through your heart and your mind as a wife? Or were you just super encouraging, said let's go for it? Because you guys, meanwhile, you're still in ministry, doing the singing ministry, but maybe it's tapering off at that time frame. Tell me kind of how do you fit in all that? Because I think there's a lot of spouses and wives and husbands, one way or the other, that's feeling a calling. And I don't believe God just calls one or the other. Now it might call one to full-time do it and the other one, but the one's got to be a helpmate, and it has to be, it's going to play a part of it. A pastor's called to be a pastor, but a pastor's wife is a whole other avenue, but they're not on staff a lot. They're not doing that, but they have to be called to it too, because they're one in the ministry. So where do you fit in with all that at that time, with where he was at to get us to where we are now?
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I guess where I would jump in is, early on when he started going down the road, talking to Chip, we found CTO, in the deer stands and stuff like that. And that was all great. I was, completely 100% supportive. I guess where I would kind of jump tracks a little bit, and tell my story is I was the one that was raised hunting and fishing and, going to Canada on fishing trips. And, I was I grew up with the boys. I was out doing all the hunting trips, coyote hunting, fox hunting, deer hunting, and like he said, I was an only child, so I was my dad's boy. I was, my mom's girl too, but, he didn't have his boy, so I got to do everything with him. And he was an excavator. My grandparents had an excavating company, and so I grew up. I remember running a backhoe, like moving it across the field when I was 3, and ever since then, that's just been it's kind of in my blood, I guess. I can jump in pretty much any piece of equipment and do what needs to be done. It wouldn't be as pretty as Nathan because he's a perfectionist, but, I can just, I did a lot of things that most people don't, even most guys don't get to do. So when Nathan was feeling God calling him into outdoor ministry, that was great to me. I always kind of felt like I was pulling him to do the outdoor stuff just because he didn't have time, and that's what I wanted to do. Because of the farming and stuff, it was hard. We didn't do that together. I usually would take the kids out hunting a lot when he was out, milking the cows or whatever he had to do. So then in that time frame, and he's going through this process and, hearing from God and stuff, I'm like, well, that's great, God. What's my part in this? Mm-hmm. It's a boys ministry, that's how it was started. I knew all of that. Do you just want, as we started doing events and stuff in the beginning, I just started asking God, like, I love to cook. I if you just want me to be a cook, I can be a cook, but I know I have so much more to offer. And that's really where I struggled in the beginning, was just kind of trying to find my place, because this was my thing, and all of a sudden it's Nathan's thing and not my thing. And so that was kind of a struggle for me, which is, I know, a unique one. Most couples wouldn't have that kind of struggle, but it was good, and it grew me and it tested me. And but a cool part of my story is, as I just was supporting him, doing what I could do to help and encouraging him and stuff along the way, I kept talking to God about my place. Like, what is my part in this? And I felt like he kind of kept nudging me, like, just wait, it's coming. It's kind of what I was feeling, but I'm not a patient person. And so, I just keep okay, but he would keep giving me little puzzle pieces of my story. And I remember it was going to be Jonathan's second year of going to a summer camp in Missouri. And the first year that we went, you guys needed to cook. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to go and help actually your mom and dad cook the very first year.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I know you did that with Jennifer, but no, you did that with my folks.
Yep.
They had been my mother had been the camp cook for several years prior to that at a variety of other camps. So.
Yeah. And the three of us made a great team. Yeah. It was really awesome to have, kind of get, shown the ropes of the camp cooking type stuff with them. And, it was a fun week. And then, so then we're coming up to the second year of camps, and Jonathan was going to go to fishing camp. Well, at fishing camp, all the food is taken care of, and they really didn't need a cook. And so we're a pretty tight knit family unit. We've got 3 kids, and we do everything together. Vacations are together. Just everything's together. I mean, we homeschool, so we're tight knit. We're together all the time. We actually like to be together all the time. And when they were talking about, Jonathan and Nathan going down to Missouri, like 12 hours from home for, which would end up being 7 to 8 days with that traveling time in there. Yeah. I was not cool with that. I wasn't going to tell him no, but I was really struggling. And I mean, I shared that with Nathan, and he knew that. But there was no place for me. And I even had these ideas like, well, what if I took the girls down to Branson, because it's not very far away from fishing camp. We've never done a mother-daughter thing before, because like I said, we do everything as a family. So if they're doing a father-son thing, I could take the girls to Branson, get a cheap hotel and just do shopping and girl things, That was a great idea, but Nathan's like, and where are we getting the money for that? It's I have no idea, but something just didn't feel right about him taking off, and it just, I was really struggling with it. And so this one particular day, Nathan's leaving for work, and it's like down to the wire. I have to sign Jonathan up for camp, and I kept procrastinating because of my heart issues. And he's like, he was leaving for work, and he goes out the front door, and I ran and I opened the door again. I'm like, what are we going to do about camp? And he turns around and he's like, I don't know, but just sign Jonathan up and we'll just see what, how God has this all planned out. Yeah. So, okay. So I go in and I'm fighting with God. I'm like, God, I don't like this. It doesn't feel right. And I went and I signed him up, and it was like 15 minutes later, I get a phone call from, at the time, it was the Texas State Director's wife. Mm-hmm. And she says, Nikki, we've got a girls' summer camp coming up, and I know this is really late notice because it was like 2 weeks before camps. Mm-hmm. It was getting really close. And she said, I know it's late notice, but I had a lady coming to one of our girls' camps to be a hunting guide, and she just backed out on me, and I need help. Is there any chance that you could come down to Texas and help me with a girls' camp and be a guide? And I was like, oh, 2 weeks away from Nathan? I did not like this at all at first. And I'm like, well...
That's sweet, isn't it?
She loves me so much.
I do. I kind of like the guy. But anyway, so I asked her, I'm like, well, when is it? And she gave me the dates, and it was the dates of the same camp Jonathan was going to. Oh, and I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, And then she told me where it was. I just pop it into my GPS on my phone, and I put I don't know if it was Cross Timbers or what it was in there at the time, just because I knew that was a place where we'd probably stop on the way through. Yeah. And it was this slightly curved, almost straight line. And it was directly Missouri camp was exactly halfway between. And I'm like, okay, this is all kind of interesting. Just seems like it's all really looking suspiciously like it's supposed to happen. Like God. Yeah. And so anyway, I talked to Nathan and everything worked out. We took the girls down. So our family jumped in the vehicle for camp, go down to Cross Timbers. We stayed at Cross Timbers. The next morning, I took my girls and we headed to Texas and left the boys at Cross Timbers. And I went and got my first experience guiding and doing all that kind of stuff there. And I had, it was, that was a while back. So we were able to kind of do a crash course and getting me certified and everything back then. But that was a huge experience in my life. I learned a lot there and was able to come back and kind of continue to find out what God was leading me to. Mm-hmm. And I really left Texas knowing what he was calling me to. And it was really kind of a girl's version of CTO. So that's what's been on my heart. And it's been really fun to watch God put more puzzle pieces together, as things grow and stuff. And we've, in Wisconsin, we've done some girls' camps and outings and Bible studies and stuff like that for several years now. So, yeah.
It's been cool to watch just how that has transformed for both of you guys, and how, again, I keep going back to the whole fact of being equipped, but also have to be you have to have do the act of obedience. So sometimes you don't really know how you fit in. I think that's all the time. We feel like we got to have everything planned out. Everything's got to be out and about and perfectly lined, and all the, I don't like this phrase, and so all the stars lined up, and then we take the leap. But many times God just wants us to be obedient to our calling. You were saying you knew you were feeling a calling, but you weren't quite sure what it looked like per se, but you knew you were called to outdoor ministry, discipleship, youth, and the outdoors of some sort. And then
actually, I had a very specific time that God spoke to me very clearly that I was supposed to be a camp director. And at that time, I was like, where is this coming from? Is some camp is going to call me looking for a director? I'm an excavator. So it's just like...
Yeah, because when you quit the farming, you started excavating with your
right
business.
Right. And then I basically ran that business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
She's like, take this thing, would you?
so like I said, God called me to be a camp director, and I remember this was
a couple years before.
That was before I found out about CTO, but this was in the center shot days.
Yeah.
I had started center shot, and then it was like very clearly God called me to be a camp director. And I remember talking to a mentor of ours, and I was like, well, what do we do? Like, God just called, like, I'm certain. I mean, God speaks very loudly sometimes and very softly sometimes. And to me, up until this point, I mean, if he's going to call me to something big, he always called it very loudly to me, that I knew that he called me, that it wasn't, did God call me? You know, I knew he called me, but.
Is that because so you would listen?
Yeah, because.
I mean, sometimes with guys, it's got to be loud. It's almost, I always say, it's almost got to be like with men, it's got to be like a 2x4 across their head. It's got to be hurt. It's got to hurt, or it's got to be loud, and in order for us to listen.
Right, and it was one of those times, and our music ministry was one of those times.
Yeah.
And so I asked our mentors, like, what do we do about this? He said, well, just keep getting involved in the youth and just see what God does with it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And anyway, I always thought that some ministry, I said, God, I'll do it, but I'm not going to go looking for a job. I'm not going to go search the newspaper for some camp looking for a director. But I'll do it. And so, yeah, 2 years later, we found out about CTO.
Yeah.
That's another point in there.
No, that is a point, though. I mean, I know you guys well enough, and we don't have time in this whole podcast. You guys have so many stories of how God was, again, equipping, and God was moving, and God was showing you, and God, there's so many connections of so many things. So you guys start CTO about 6 years ago, doing it as volunteers, but yet you're also raising money for a volunteer chapter, but doing pretty well at it, getting past what's even needed for a volunteer chapter. You're doing banquets. They were very successful. I know today when I said the word banquet about talking to it when I did our vision meeting today, and a bunch of people in the crowd was like, yeah, those were awesome, right? Like, bring them back, hint. And we're like, yeah, you guys were doing very well in that as well. But meanwhile, excavating business is booming.
Right.
You're very, very good at it. It's a family thing. You've got your kids involved, you're involved, your family's involved. And again, and God, you can just see it starting to happen. God's going to have us do another act of obedience. It's going to be really hard. And we're going to have to step away from another family business on the other side. And I know you guys well enough and been involved in your life enough to know that stress of just knowing that you probably knew that this day was coming. I can see it because I know we've prayed for you guys a lot and talking with you a lot. Walk us through a little bit of that. How does a person navigate that? I mean, because you've already done it a couple times, so you would think, oh, you got this down pat, right? But you didn't, did you? Because none of us have it down pat.
Right. Well, I do want to be dead honest with you guys. Mm-hmm. And our first start with the ministry took off like crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, we're on fire. We're doing events like crazy as much as we possibly can. I'm working full time. Even as an excavator, I can't get that out of my system to only work so much.
Yeah.
You know, I was working 70 plus hours a week, 5 days a week, and then trying to do CTO on Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah. And so I'm taking away from my family time and all this. And through that, I think God was teaching me a lesson. And just through life, these guys that I had volunteering, helping me out, all had things that come up in their own lives where they couldn't commit to helping me anymore, to where it was just Nikki and I for a whole year. Yeah. And so then we're trying to do it all by ourselves, and it gets to be too much, to where this next year was an amazing So it was 2 years of things really slowing down, and then it almost came to a halt on this one particular year, just last year, honestly, where I got an amazing job. Well, in the excavating world, a huge job that was bigger than what we should even take on. Yeah. That I called Nikki, and I even called my son and my kids to help me on this job. And I mean, I had Nikki in an excavator for months, and I had Jonathan on an off-road truck for months. And anyway, in that time, in the middle of it, we did take a family weekend. Yeah. And we went fishing, and I got a call from our good brother of mine, MJ, Michael Johnson, our discipleship leader now. He got a call. He said, "Nathan, I got a word from God. I just had to call you right now and tell you what it was. It's just been on my mind. I just got to tell you." And, "Okay, Michael, what is it?" He said, "God told me that he's not done with me yet, and he's going to bring my ministry back to life, and he's going to bless me." That's something like that. There's a lot more to it, but basically that's about what it was. So I'm like, "Okay, Michael, thanks a lot. Yeah, have a good day." Like whatever, not whatever, but okay. I was like,
random.
Yeah, that was very random. But I hope it's true. Hope it happens, So then, I mean, I feel bad that I'm not doing my responsibilities as a CTO leader. And anyway, in this time, coming up as in like August of this last year, Nikki's parents came to me and to Nikki, and they wanted to sell us the business so they could retire. That's what everybody wants to do, is pass their business on to the next generation. And that's what would make the most sense. I've already been running the business. Nikki's been doing the books. We had this thing figured out. We're making money. I'm finally being able to update, getting better equipment, new dump trucks, just life is good. And so anyway, in all this, I'm trying to figure out, okay, we're supposed to buy this business. And Nikki's telling me how good it's going to be, how we can hire more people and let us have.
I remember some of those stories.
Yeah, we're going to hire more people so I can take more time off to do CTO. We're going to bless our employees and bless our community. We're going to give extra money to nonprofits in our community. Just be that business, that Christian business that everybody wants to be. Yeah. And so that's her dream. She kept repeating it to me. Like I was having cold feet because I didn't know how I was going to still do CTO, because I was still very felt called to it, how I was going to do that and run a business and put my all into the business and my all into CTO. I'm kind of an all-in kind of guy.
Well, by this time, you also understood that you really couldn't do both really good.
Right.
You're going to do both kind of good, not really good. And God, now we know what you know now, what God was calling you to. So God was, again, equipping and teaching and learning and are teaching you these things to get to where you are now.
Right. So, we struggled with this offer. We put this offer together to buy our parents' business, and we sat on it for weeks. And we finally determined this one week that, okay, Saturday we'll take our parents out for lunch or supper, and we'll give them the offer. Monday, listening to a podcast. I like to listen to stuff while I'm working, running the dozer, whatever. But through that podcast, God spoke to me very clearly that I was supposed to walk away and go into CTO full time.
Okay, I gotta ask why he collects himself. Do you remember what podcast?
It actually wasn't a podcast; it was a book. It was Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson.
Chase the Lion, yeah, it's a good one.
And that shot me in the foot because I knew he was struggling. I really believed that God was giving us this business so that we could bless others and do CTO better. Mm-hmm. I really thought that financially it was just going to launch everything that we had wanted to do. Plus it was my plan since I was this high, Yeah.
So anyway, I came home that night and I told Nikki that I think God's telling me that we're supposed to walk away from this business and we're supposed to go into the ministry full time. And she again reassured me that I heard wrong from God. So I said,
It probably felt like that drastic.
Kind of.
But for both of you.
I said that, okay, you need to seek God and find out for yourself, is what I told her.
Yeah, it was a nice conversation. But it was, I mean, he just, I could tell that he was feeling like the business was not what he was supposed to do. And that was scaring me because it was like, for another thing, we've got 3 kids, 3 teenagers. My oldest one has already asked how soon she can buy in to the business because that's what she wants to do. Mm-hmm. And she had already been helping me with the books for at least 3 years at that point. Mm-hmm. So she's trained in on QuickBooks. She's helping me, on the background side. And I knew that us walking away is taking that opportunity away from her as well. And so that was really hard. And that was something that was really holding me back. Just not wanting to take that away from our kids. And, so Nathan it was very gentle, the way he said it. I remember him saying, I feel like God has told me that we need to walk away from the business, but he said, I'm not going to tell you that. And the way he said it was, and I always cry when I think of this because, I'll never forget when he came to me and he said, I know that this is your dream. I know this is what you really want. But I feel God calling us away. And I need you to talk to him about it and let him tell you. Because he didn't want to take it away from me without God being very clear to me. Mm-hmm. And so that next day, actually, it was the next morning. It was Tuesday. And Tuesday was kind of a crazy day, and I had all this going on in my head. I'm feeling complete overwhelm. And I have a trail behind our house through the woods that I had been spending a lot of time with God back there. Just walking back there as much as I could and just, a place where I can just pray out loud and don't have to think, just walk. And it was amazing how many times he would throw I would walk up on a buck laying down, or turkeys all fanned out, or even a bear. I snuck up on a bear one day and didn't know that he was there till we were looking at each other in the eyes about 20 feet apart because he was over a little knoll. It is cool how God was just like, I don't know, speaking to me and kind of showing up and felt like he was, giving those animals to just, remind me that he's there and stuff. It was just cool. And so it was a special place. And anyway, so I knew that I needed to hear from God very clearly. And the kids were home that day and I said, guys, I'm going for my prayer walk and I don't know when I'm going to be back. And I honestly had every intention of not coming back until I heard from him. And so I went out on my walk and I was probably only gone for maybe an hour. I don't know. But I was out there and I was just telling God how great this was going to be with us having this business and how much we could do for him with this business and all the money that, Nathan and I had like really learned how to run this business, and it was going to be amazing. And just telling him all those things. Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah. Well, it really was. It was like, yeah, right. And it was that fear of letting go, and kind of just almost like, but really, did you think about it this way, God? And kind of like trying to make sure.
Amazing how we do that.
I know.
As human beings,
yep.
It's amazing how. And I'm number one on that list. So.
And he had brought us through so many things like this, but every time it's bigger. Yeah. And so here we are again in that position. And so I'm out there, telling God all these things and stuff and how great it's going to be. And that, I'm sure Nathan's hearing him wrong and all this stuff. But I kept talking to God and I wasn't listening. And finally, I just broke down and sobbed. And I said, God, would you please just hit me over the head with a 2x4 so that I know what you want us to do. Mm-hmm. And he finally spoke so clearly. His answer was, how much harder would you like me to hit you? And it was kind of like in that phrase that he laid on my heart was this flood of stuff, that he had been doing and been, like just things in life that he had been preparing us for this. And even just so many things and so many different angles. And he just made it so clearly all in that moment. And I'm like, okay, I'll walk away. And I went home, and that evening Nathan and I talked, and I told him my story and that we were finally on the same page, and I agreed, and that we could walk away. And so that was Tuesday night. And then Wednesday morning, so back to Tuesday night, the first person that I actually told that we had made a decision was our accountant. Our accountant knew, she had watched the business from in the past, how financially it was really struggling. And then when I came in, Jordan and I came in and started doing the books and stuff. And, us working as a tight-knit family unit, we're just, we really turned it around and made it something great. And that's another thing that I was excited about, and she was excited about. She had watched all that happen, and she knew the potential that it had, especially with us running it. But she also knew our hearts, and she knew about CTO. And so I texted her that Tuesday night, and I just said, hey, I just want you to know that Nathan and I have made a decision. We feel that God's very clearly calling us to walk away, and we're going to go into CTO full time. And she texted me back. She's like, I know you guys are making the right decision. You're following your heart. You're good at that stuff. You're passionate. I know that, I've seen the passion. And she was just really supportive. Even though she was so excited about us doing the business, she understood, all the other parts to it too. And
what a role God was using her at that time to encourage you, because she could have went the opposite, and it would have made you potentially start going down that trail. Doubt. And like, well, did I hear God?
Yep.
I didn't hear him quite as loud as I thought. Maybe that 2x4 was a piece of plywood, and it was bendable and breakable, or whatever it was. So praise God for her to play a role in your life. I think that's very important for people to understand. There's so many sermons in what you're saying. I know we still haven't even got to even more of the good stuff. This is also good. It may have to be a 3-part deal here, but because I think it's just so hard for people to, at least for me over my life, and you guys know Jen and I's story. It's similar but totally different, right? And just active obedience and walking away from amazing stuff that's like makes no sense, and everybody's saying no, but God and your spouse. And I think if there's a lesson in this part that I feel God telling me just to tell anybody, whether it's now or years from now listening to this podcast, that just hang on, just listen. What have we been studying? God, what do you want me to know? And what do you listen? And when he tells you, say, what do you want me to do? And what comes, don't talk yourself out of it, because that is, if you have a relationship with the Lord and the Holy Spirit does live within you, he is going to answer that. And when he does, listen to it and then do it. But so many people, myself included at times in my life, don't do that. And it's so encouraging. You guys have always been encouraging for me to see your active obedience to this, and to get to that point, and for your journey, and for God to clearly hit you with 2x4, and that your accountant could have very easily persuaded at that time, but didn't. And I hope she understands her role that God played. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, if you've told her that. But just because I think that's just awesome, because that, once again, that would teach her. I don't know if she even needs taught. I'm just saying what a neat thing for her to play a role in confirming your calling.
Yeah.
Now, when you all came and talked to me about this, there was no surprise to me. I've always felt like God was going to get that to you. I never prophesied that over you. I don't have that gifting, but I've always believed you were supposed to be here, and knew that even during those times where things seemed like it was fading, and I was seeing that, and people were seeing that, you were seeing that, I always just felt that wasn't going to happen. I didn't know how it was not going to happen, but knew that God had something for you in this, and always believed that you would do this full time sometime. But the journey and the equipping and had to happen first, and I didn't know what that was going to look like, but that's the story that we're all hearing now. That's all for part 1 of our 2-part conversation with Nathan and Nikki Clark. Be sure to come back next week for part 2. Thank you for listening to Wild Pursuits with Cross Trail Outfitters. CTO is a hunting and fishing club with the mission of guiding the next generation to Christ through the outdoors. If you'd like to support us and are interested in getting involved, visit us on our website at teamcto.org. Links are in the description. Make sure to like and share our podcast.